Hello, Helen Capel here. I am the creator of Kaleidographic, and this is the first of 4 videos introducing this particular visualization tool that you can see playing here on the screen. So over the course of these 4 videos, I will introduce both the motivation for why this tool was created, which is the topic of this short video, and in subsequent videos I will show and demonstrate the functionality of the tool and how to build your own visualizations using the Kaleidographic builder. Okay, so first of all, what is Kaleidographic? Well, it is a data visualization tool, and it is a visualization tool that allows the viewer to experience the results of analyses as they unfold in a sequence. It is also a tool that reveals multiple perspectives, if you like, reflections on the relations between any number of elements and variables that you may choose to compare. And most importantly, for the work that I've been doing in recent times, it allows the analyst to see potential latent patterns in the data that might not be accessible in static graphs and tables. And I'll demonstrate what I mean by this using an example in this short video. Now, this software is free and it is available at kaleidographic.org. And you are very welcome to use this software to create and distribute your own custom standalone visualizations. They are highly customizable and you can manipulate many of the variables according to your own data and needs. Most importantly, though, no data is retained by this site. All processing happens at your end, so using your browser. And so if you are using sensitive data and you're worried about whether or not it's being retained by this site, absolutely nothing is retained at all in this software. So you can be assured that your data is not being taken in any way. Okay, so as I've already said, there are a number of videos explaining this tool. So in the second video, I demonstrate the functionality of the visualizations that are made using Kaleidographic. In the third video, I demonstrate how you can build your own visualization using the Kaleidographic Builder tool, which is at that website there. And in the final video, I demonstrate how you can upload your files once you've built your visualization, how you upload them to a server, and then view your visualization in a website. Okay, so the purpose of this video is to explain why Kaleidographic was, first of all, felt to be necessary and then designed, and what it can actually show us for those of us who are doing complex analyses. So this visualization tool was developed out of a project looking at news values analysis. And the actual analysis is written up in this book, which I co-authored with Monica Bednarek, about the discourse of news values. So this is a case study. It appears in chapter 8 of the book, and it is a news values analysis of most shared news items. Now, when we came to look at this particular case study, we had a number of questions that we needed to ask ourselves as discourse analysts. Now, as you can see it here, this is a text here from that particular data set. So we had to consider exactly how we were going to approach this particular data set. Now, I am a social semiotician. I tend to look more at the visual construction of meaning in visuals and layout and other in photographs, in other visuals, in layout and those kinds of things, and how that interacts with verbal text. And Monica is much more of a verbal discourse analyst and corpus linguist, and so she's much more interested in what's going on in the verbal text. Bring those two people together, and you get much more complex ways in which to look at a text and to want to basically account for all kinds of meanings that are made in all modes. So in order to position ourselves within our research interests, we created this topology in order for us to be able to situate our research quite clearly and also to bring more transparency to how we approached our data. So if we just consider this text here, so there are a number of ways in which we could approach this kind of text. So we might decide to just strip out all of the multimodal aspects of the text and only look at the verbiage. And so in such a case, we might just look within text, so only looking at one particular text, and within mode, so only looking at the verbal text. And so we take away all the other elements and just look at the meanings that are being made within that one mode, which here happens to be language, written language. Or we might say, well, actually, no, we want to see this text how the audience sees it. So we actually do want to consider the verbal and visual elements together. So we want to see how and where any visuals are used, where they are positioned, so layout and any other visual markers in the text that might help us to construe meaning in this particular text. So in this instance, we're still looking at the same text, at one text, but now we are looking at multiple modes. So we're looking between modes. Now, Monica is a corpus linguist, and so she might say, nope, I am not particularly interested in looking at the multimodal text. What I want to do is I just want to look at all of the verbiage, so all of the texts in a particular data set. And so as a discourse analyst, you might again just decide to look at lots and lots of texts, but not look at them in their context or with any multimodal elements. As a social semiotician, I might come along and say, well, actually, no, don't want to do that. I would rather look at all of the images in a particular data set and not take into consideration any verbal text, in which case I might just do a visual content analysis of a set of photographs. But ultimately, what we wanted to do together was to look at all of the texts in our data set in their multimodal richness, which meant that we were looking at multiple texts. So we're looking at relations and results across a number of texts, so between texts, and we're also obviously looking between mode. So for this particular case study, we situated ourselves in this quadrant of our topology in that we were looking across a large number of texts and we were looking at meanings that were made between modes. So to come back to our text, what this also was made even more complex by was the fact that we were not just looking at one text, but we were looking at 72 texts, and we were looking at quite a number of variables. So our analysis entailed doing a news values analysis of the text, and so we were looking at 10 different variables, which were the 10 news values that are listed here. And we also wanted to look multimodally at the text, which meant that we were looking at these three elements of the text. So looking at the headline, looking at the image, and looking at the opening paragraph and analyzing that for these 10 variables. Looking at the construction of these 10 news values over these three elements over 72 texts. So as you can see, this is quite complex discourse analysis that we are carrying out here. We might say multimodal discourse analysis as we are looking at the meaning being made across multiple modes. So this kind of analysis is quite difficult to model your results in a visual manner. So I could just give you the results of the analysis of all of the images. So and we can present that quite easily in a static table. So we can see that 32% of all of the photographs in this data set constructed personalization, and personalization was the news value that was most constructed in our images, and so on through the table. And that only tells us part of the story. It only tells us about the photographs in our data set. We could try to represent a more complex understanding of the combination of image, headline, and opening paragraph and the construction of news values, again in a static table, but it gets very complex and very difficult to read. And so, and again, here we are only looking at the construction of each news value individually. So in this table, I can assess that as far as eliteness is concerned. So eliteness is constructed in 16 stories in image, headline, and opening paragraph, in 3 stories in image and headline only, and so on. But again, we don't get to see how news values combine, and we don't get to see that in a very easy manner in a static visualization. So what I'm getting at here is that what we actually want to see is we want to see the results of news values construction in image, in headline, in opening paragraph, and we want to see every single result for every single news value across these 3 elements, image, headline, and paragraph, all at the same time. And then we want to see that for the next text and the next text and the next text. And that's where Kaleidographic comes into play. And so what we're looking at here at the moment is the results of our analysis for one text. Now, before I go any further, I should just clarify that this visualization tool visualizes the results of your analysis. So you actually do need to go and do that analysis first. It's not going to do the news values analysis for you. What it is going to display is the results of your analysis. So what you see in this table here can be reconstrued by inputting this data into our visualization builder tool, and it turns out to be something that looks like this. So the visualization tool, as it plays through our results, shows us when each of the news values is constructed. So the cell lights up in a different color, and we see our results unfolding across the entire data set. So we can see where multiple news values are constructed, and we can also see where they are constructed in the headline, in the opening paragraph, or in the photograph. Now, I'm just going to take a step back here now and talk you through exactly what is going on in this visualization here in relation to this particular analysis of news values. So this example that we are using here. So Kaleidographic, or the data visualization, is showing us multiple perspectives on the relationship between a number of elements and variables. So the important thing here now is to try and understand what we mean by elements and variables and how these can be translated into the kind of data that you want to visualize using this particular tool. So I'll just step through each of these elements here. So what is an element? What is a variable? What are your data points? So first of all, in relation to our news values analysis example, this data set has 3 elements: image, headline, and opening paragraph. And so those 3 elements in the data visualization are represented as the 3 layers. So the results of our image analysis are represented in the outer layer. The middle layer shows our headline analysis, and the opening paragraph analysis is in the inner layer. And that's summarized here in the legend. Now, an important thing to remember is that these visualizations are completely customizable. So you can have one layer, you can have two layers, you can have 10 layers. So it depends on the data that you are particularly looking at. So you can increase and decrease the number of elements that you want to compare according to your data at will. So the second thing to understand in relation to this visualization tool is that your variables that you are looking at will be represented as segments in the data visualization. So in our example of the news values analysis, we had 10 variables that we were looking at, so 10 different news values. And so each segment represents one of these news values. And so we have 10 segments in this particular visualization. And again, the number of segments can be increased or decreased to suit the number of variables that you want to compare. So again, that aspect is customizable as well. And of course, the number of data points that you look at is also your choice, and you can look at a very large number of data points, or you can look at one or two or three or four or 10 data points. And so those each data point is represented as a playable scene. So for example, here our data set had 72 different texts in it. Um, this text here is text number 1, and what you are looking at there in the visualization is the results of the analysis for text number 1 in this particular data set. In addition to the visualization tool has been the use of an aggregator at the bottom of the visualization. So you want to also add into your visualization the accumulation of your results as you move across the data set. You can add in this aggregation bar distribution plot at the bottom of the visualization. Okay, and that represents your overall analysis as it accumulates across the whole data, as you would be able to also demonstrate in a static table. Okay, so just to come back to what I was talking about earlier in relation to multimodal discourse analysis and this way of talking about where you position yourself as a researcher using this topology here. Well, if we simply play through our multimodal analysis as this particular example demonstrates, what we are getting here is the results of our analysis, which is between texts and between modes. So we can add on there the aggregator, which will also give us the accumulation of results for each particular mode. And so we can see all of that added up in here. And if we were to simply move through the visualization one text at a time, so using this previous and next button on our visualization tool, so we can have a more static view of a single multimodal text. And so we can look at our data one text at a time. Using various functionalities of the data visualization tool, which is explained in the next video, we can apply a filter to our final visualization. And here what I've done is I have filtered for mode. So I have eliminated the analysis of image here. So what we are looking at now is only the results of analysis of the verbal text, the headline and the opening paragraph. So we are back looking within mode. And we are looking at all of our 72 texts if we play this visualization while this layer is eliminated. Um, and again, we could also just do a stepwise single move through each individual text by using the previous or the next button, and we can get the results of one text at a time. So again, looking within text and within mode if we still have this filter applied, which eliminates one of the modes. So as you can see, Kaleidographic has the ability to visualize complex results of analyses, and we can use various ways of engaging with the tool through its different functionalities to actually look at either individual texts or to look at particular modes. Okay, so Kaleidographic isn't for use only by multimodal discourse analysts. Anyone can use Kaleidographic for any kind of research, whether it be for the result, looking at the results of surveys, or looking at particular analyses, genre analyses across the unfolding, mapping the unfolding of meanings within one text, within multiple texts, or it could be for completely different sorts of analyses. It is entirely open and agnostic as to what kind of analyses are visualized using this tool. But some of the, if you like, some of the affordances of this particular tool are that it can demonstrate variation across different elements and variables, as I've demonstrated here in relation to news story texts, the different aspects of the news story text and the different variables here to examine the construction of news values. As I hope I have also demonstrated, it can show complex interactions between those different elements and variables. And if your data is organized chronologically, you can show change over time by looking at the unfolding of your analysis as you watch the visualization play through all of your data. And again, also if your data is chronologically ordered, you can show the emergence of trends across the whole of your data. Okay, so I hope that has illuminated you as to why Kaleidographic was first of all conceptualized and how it has been used for multimodal discourse analysis. If you'd like to know more about the visualization tool, we have 3 other videos in our playlist on YouTube. The second one looks at the functionality of the visualization tool, demonstrating how you can manipulate different aspects of the tool as you watch it play and unfold. And the third and fourth videos deal quite specifically with how you create your own visualizations and input your data into the Kaleidographic Builder tool. And then the final video demonstrates how to then upload your files into a server and to be able to view your own visualization through a web browser. So that's it from me. Thanks for watching and for listening, and good luck with you creating your own visualizations.